So please welcome Jessie Herman to the show. Welcome, Jessie.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashley.
You're so welcome, all the way from Italy.
Yeah.
I'm going there in June, so next
Oh,
month.
wonderful. So maybe we can catch up in person too. That'd be so nice.
Gosh, could you imagine?
That'd be
No, I'm
wonderful.
just, looking forward to that. I've never been, and that was one
Will
of
you be
our,
through Milan? Because we'll definitely get in touch if you are.
we are not, we're
Oh,
not, we're in Rome. How far is Rome from Milan?
it's a couple hours on the train. So there's a
Okay.
fast train. Yeah.
Oh, wow. But let's talk about that because I was listening to you talk about, there's stamps or like where you were born into and you were like you were drawn to Italy because you've
Yeah.
never felt like you needed to leave. Because I know that feeling. I'm in San Diego and I
Mhm.
had moved and it was always like, this is where I feel at home. This is my, what do you call it? Stamp?
Like location, like hub. I wouldn't have I don't have a term for it, but it's almost like you're called to be a lighthouse in a space or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. It feels like I don't know. Like I'm just here. Well, my life's now established here, but I don't know exactly, in a logical order how I ended up here. So,
Right. But
yeah.
you just know that, in our soul plan, like that's what I mean. Like your soul was drawn to Italy to do what you do
Yeah.
and to have your
Exactly.
children and all that.
Mhm.
So I was drawn to you by I I was listening to a podcast and I'm into, I've started this podcast 3 years ago and I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know who I was going to interview. I didn't know what direction I was going to go. I just listened to my intuition
Right.
and started this podcast. And like 2 days later, the girls, I have two daughters, were called into quarantine. So
Oh.
school got canceled. And I thought, wow, that's why I have all this time. I can really learn how to do this and see where this leads me. Well, this has led me. I've always been a seeker, spiritual, always at the bookstore, had my children older in life like you did, 37 and 40. And, I always believe, I've always just known for more, but lately, and I know since 2020, I've read the Seth material. I've done Abraham Hicks. I'm part of the Joshua. I'm going there this week to a seminar where Gary Bodley channels Joshua. I've done all that kind of seeking. But it's interesting when I look back at my podcast, I'm now in the 160s. I haven't missed a week. And it's where it's kind of gradually gotten into this and maybe every other one is a channel. Maybe,
Oh.
it's just so, and then mediums. And, I don't know. I just let it lead me. It's not even a plan. It's whatever is calling me. People
Mm.
are like, how do you pick who's going to be on your podcast? And I don't really do that. I kind of just know that when I saw you, I'm like, oh, I just want to share you because I think your story's so fascinating and how it came into your life when it did.
Mhm.
And I think people realize now. I think channel is more of a common word these days. It's not, and I see the life. I see kind of it becoming more. I see people opening their life. Meditation has been the main theme, and like all of a sudden I'm channeling, there's all this channel people coming through. So I would love for you, because I think your story is so neat, when you go back to childhood, and I know you have, what age are your children?
My children are 6 and 12
Okay.
now. Yeah.
So but when you were that age, I
Yeah.
feel like you were like, we all know that we're programmed from 0 to 7. We have all our limiting beliefs and our parents and our surroundings and everything. But I feel like you were aware that you did have, like, it was like something was knocking at you, like, and then you just kind of closed it off.
Yeah. Well, when I was like a little kid, in fact, I was just reminiscing about this week. I was just so weird. Like,
Oh, funny.
and I think I've spent my whole life like trying to figure out how everybody else works because everybody else seems so foreign to me. But when I was a little kid, I just like a lot of weird tendencies and traits and stuff like that. And on top of that, I had like what my parents would call vivid imagination, but to me was very real, and was seeing things that weren't there all the time, was having conversations with things that weren't there all the time. And some of them were very pleasant and some were also scary. So when I would go to adults and say like, oh, this, this thing happened, it was very much that sort of reaction of like, oh yeah, it's the monster under your bed type of story or whatever. But now in retrospect, I realized that I could see things that are normally non-physical. So I could see energies, I could see spirits or ghosts, whatever you'd want to call that, and I remember when I saw The Sixth Sense, I really resonated with that little boy, because his experience was so much so that he had to hide what was going on for him from mom, and it was couldn't maybe not being able to discern what was real, or according to humanity, real and not real. And so at a certain point, you do lose that battle if you're a kid, when you have every older person telling you that what your reality isn't real. And you go, well, okay, I have to now integrate in society. I have to integrate into this world. And, your little innocent mind goes, okay, well, how am I going to do that? And what you do is you start pretending that you don't see the thing, and you start learning ways to shut it down and to close it down. I honestly believe this is what happens to all of us. But maybe it happens at an earlier age, or maybe it's something that happens sort of like as a normal closing of that opening that we have as like newborn infants and stuff. I'm getting like tingles now. So I have a remembrance of, that being called weird, or having these weird experiences, and having to sort of put that, in a closet and go, okay, well, I'm not going to deal with that at all anymore, to the point of forgetting that they were there. And then later on, things would recur. There would be some recurrence of those types of situations, scenarios, especially if someone like I knew had died younger than they were supposed to, or stuff like that. There were some things that would happen later on, but again, I just said, well, I have a vivid imagination. And it wasn't until I accepted or agreed to channel with the energy that was calling through to me, that I realized, oh, actually, no, all of that was real.
Right. Do you raise your daughter? Do you have girls or boys?
I have a good daughter and a son. So my daughter's older, and she is the complete opposite. She's like such a skeptic. It's so funny how, like she thinks, all of this stuff is just woo-woo crazy, and she doesn't really enter into it. But I have to say, several years ago, she was very similar to me in that, like, she had things that she could see at night and stuff like that. So I think, again, it's that natural mechanism of like closing something down for the sake of just existing as a human, because we have that right. We have the right to say, you know what, I'm not interested in this aspect of reality, because it isn't the one that is serving me to be a human day to day, but if you also choose, and I think this is also why a lot of channels are sort of, I don't want to call myself middle-aged, but middle-aged and older, people start channeling a little bit older, because maybe, the first part of life is sort of to get to a space where you know who you are and you've done all your human living stuff. And it seems that, a lot of channeling comes in around when you turn 40 or 50. And that's really interesting that I've seen that sort of trend.
Yeah, I have too.
Amongst channels.
It is, but like to experience, like we're here, we chose to be human.
Yeah.
And I just can't tell you how much I've loved learning from you lately and reading your book. But when you talk about, in your mind, when you look at your children, and how do you look at them like they chose you, or do you feel like, how do you view that?
Well, I think we chose each other. Like, I think that your children and your parents and basically anyone you have direct contact with, I really think it goes as far as like, the people that are at your local grocery store or whatever, are people that you've agreed with each other to play certain roles in each other's lives, to serve each other in certain ways, and that can be either in positive or quote negative ways. It doesn't necessarily matter, because even the people who trigger you the most, I mean, we all know, how often has it been that you've like years later gone, the person that really taught me the most in life was that, that person that really pushed all my buttons the most. And it's like a deal. So when I look at them, I do feel that they chose me. But I do know that I needed them. So
Right.
that's like, I must have chosen them as well, exactly as a configuration to, help me with my own spiritual growth and path
Right.
as well. Yeah.
And so you're on your journey and you get to 40, you're getting ready to have your first child when this.
No, I already had my first, let's see. No, they were both around. No, yeah, they were both around. So I had both my kids, and I had like birth trauma with my first daughter. So I had like a lot of like postpartum stuff going on. That's when I started meditating. And then I had my son, and that a lot of that was like healed because I had a home birth, and I'd like orchestrated the whole thing to be a healing ceremony, actually.
Hmm.
And I'd been meditating, and I'd gotten into my own spiritual practice and journey and seeking. And it was my 40th birthday. And I was just so tired of this calling, this like, it wasn't a pressure. There was no discomfort. It was just like something in me knew I'm meant to be doing something, or not even knew that, but was like annoyed because something kept telling me I'm meant to be doing
Oh,
something.
funny.
So I was going to prove this energy inside of myself, or, cosmic energy, completely wrong, by proving that I'm not a channel once and for all, and showing them that I, can't channel. And so I set up like a voice recording software on my phone, and I lay down on my bed to meditate, with the first time like saying like, okay, now I'm open to this. If I'm a channel, like come through, spirit, or whatever it is. And I went into meditation, and I thought I'd fallen asleep. But when I woke up, there was a recording on the phone.
Wow.
And it was the same energy that I had like done some automatic writing or years earlier. Very beautiful, no pressure energy of like, listen, there's a message for humanity. This energy is here to help, because humanity's calling now to, to this energy, to this universal energy. And you have the ability to do this. You don't, no problems if you don't want to, like, we're not going to force you, but thank you for opening up. And like, let's see, if this can be a collaboration. So I just imagine I'm crazy. Just said,
Oh,
okay,
funny.
fine. I'm making things up again. Like, what I was told when I was a kid. Oh, my imagination's, off the hook again, and whatever. And I experimented a little bit, but it was a couple weeks later when I met a bunch of people who were into channeling. And it was weird because up until then I hadn't met anyone who was into channeling. And they were going around talking about Bashar. They were talking about all these channels that they knew and how excited they were about channeling as a medium. And at the 5th or 6th day of them being excited about channels, I was like, hey guys, maybe I'm not sure what happened last week, but maybe I channeled, I'm not sure. So they were excited, and they were super enthusiastic to put together like a session, right? And we did the session, and it was amazing because for the first time I had proof that it wasn't me talking to myself, because they were asking questions that I didn't know in advance.
Right.
And the answers were so fast and so spot on. I didn't even know these people. So I couldn't have like guessed stuff about them or been imagining things or known what would help them. I hadn't sat with them as coaching clients. So I didn't know their issues or anything. But when we came out of the session, it was really very clear that this energy wasn't for me to keep all to myself. So,
Right. But you were doing life coaching, you're a pranic healer. You had
I
done,
was doing life coaching. The pranic healing came a little bit afterwards, or just sort of around the same time.
okay.
Let's see. I can't remember which came first. No, the pranic healing came afterwards. In fact, in that same 1 week period,
Oh.
something like that. So it was really interesting that this was sort of given around the same time. Yeah.
Did you ever have a regular job?
I did. Yeah. I worked, I worked in corporate. I worked as a graphic designer at Unilever for 4 years in England. And I worked as a computer animator. So I've had like a lot of creative jobs before. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
have you
different
been but reading and like meditating and always doing that kind of stuff?
No, only since my daughter was born. So that's only 12 years.
Oh,
That's
okay.
only 12 years of like sort of spiritual journey, awakening type of practice, and self-help books and stuff like that. But again, that was only 12 years. And I think I started the life coaching sometime after I sort of healed a little bit from her. So even the life coaching is something that's relatively recent because I was focusing on being like a full-time mom and And then I was like, oh, but I really would like to do something. So that's how I got a couple of my first clients in terms of life coaching. And again, with the life coaching as well, I think that there was a special aspect to having extrasensory perception, because when I go into a coaching client session, it's as if I'm having two conversations, one with the person in front of me and then one with their higher self. And I'm like constantly like, it's almost like, it's not even like life coaching. It's like couples coaching for a person
Oh,
themselves, and
wow.
like making peace between like the two issues of what's going on. So often I'll have information for people about like what their blocks are, or where they're sabotaging themselves, or not even where they're just, needing more love. I'll have like a lot of interaction with like the inner child of the person and stuff like that. And it's really quite transformative because I think it's guided also by the extrasensory ability to sense what's going on and to be in a state where I'm open to their soul speaking in a way. Yeah.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
fascinating. Have you
Yeah.
done past life regressions on your
No,
lives?
no,
No,
I
you
haven't.
haven't.
No, no.
Why?
I don't know. It's never sort of come up as an interest. I find like all my interests are very, they move towards pushing forward what's happening with what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So every time I think, oh, you know what, I should really do this thing, or I should really do that thing. It's like, I think the thing and then I forget it. And then I just don't look into it. And then it comes back up maybe 3 months later. And I say, oh yeah, that would be so cool to do that. And there's so many modalities. I mean, even, I have a friend, she's an amazing astrologer, even to get your chart written, or like to
Right.
look into all these other modalities and like have all this like wealth of beautiful knowledge from the world. And I'm so into all of the stuff, but I never do anything. Like I
Huh.
can never get around to it.
Oh, funny. But you believe in reincarnation?
No, well, I don't know if I believe in reincarnation, because
Okay.
with Vagrian, they've kind of, I used to, but they're constantly talking about how everything's simultaneous.
Right.
So yes, past lives, but those past lives are more like other energies that are simultaneously happening that are not necessarily linear. So,
Right.
so like you're more connected with like whatever you've had a past life regression for, but that doesn't necessarily mean it happened in the past. And
Mhm.
if you can get your head around that, then that means that right now in this now, you also have access to whatever wisdom that person right now has, which is very cool.
Right.
So
Well,
you have all your past versions as like council members and beings that can aid you in this life. And you're sort of like doing that back and forth for each other all the time.
oh God.
So
Yeah.
like you're
Wrap your
also
head
a
around.
past life to something else, right? Like
Oh
right
my
now.
gosh. Right. But when you talk about, well, parallel, multiverse, go
Yeah.
there, because what have you learned from Vagrian like that? Have they upped your understanding of all that?
I think so. It's so fascinating as a subject. In fact, a book I just bought was is like I get really into physics now because of these types of arguments, and because like science is kind of showing that this is a possibility of what reality is. But like Varian talks about this parallel reality thing so often, and I get it not as like logical in my head, but like transmission.
Okay.
So my understanding is that like not only is everything parallel and we're like all our versions of ourselves, like there's a billion infinite different Jessicas, there's also like infinite different like everybody else's,
Right.
and all of them are parallel and all of them are you. So if you would want to tune into someone else, let's say your lover, right? So you have your lover across from you and you're in a beautiful intimate moment, you can literally turn into the time. It's not time, but the
Right.
reality in which you are them in that moment.
Wow.
And you can like almost like zoom into their reality, their multiverse reality of them seeing you and you seeing them. And then you have this like ridiculous intimacy interwoven because of the fact that you are them and they are you. Now with a lover, it's easy, right?
Right.
With someone walking down the street, and their dog is making a mess on the pavement, maybe it's not as easy, right?
Right.
You want to tell them, hey, you clean up your mess, but that's you leaving the mess on the pavement too, so it's like, it does get a little like, oh my God, that's so overwhelming. And I think that's why we're individuations. Like it's much less overwhelming to be one version of one reality. but you do have access to everything because you are everything. So that's really cool as well. And also it kind of makes it hard to be upset about anything or to be angry at anyone or to not feel compassion for everyone. So once you're really starting to expand and understand that, you don't really have an option to continue being like too ego driven or too self-centered, because you know everything's you.
Right.
So you just, your heart just opens.
Right. And I love living like that. You know,
Yeah.
it's definitely evolved in the last few years for me, but I, you know, and you talk about too, like everything's perfect, even if,
Yeah.
you know, you look at something and it's, you know, I always tell the girls, and I'm sure you parent that way too. You know, it's not, what is this? What is in it for you? Like, it is for you. Like, isn't it cool to look at it like it's a
Yeah.
thing? Because it's not a bad thing. You can
Yeah.
label it bad, but it's not, you know, I just love doing that. I love living that way from that perspective, because when you get to that place, it's just like you can look at the guy on the street with the dog going to, you know, as like it's a mirror. It's all a mirror,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely is.
So okay, so you become okay. So Vagrian, the name, I understand that, but you probably should explain that to
Mhm.
everybody, how that came, and the way you Googled
Yeah.
do that whole explain that
Do the
because
whole
that's
thing. Okay,
cool.
so back to these sessions with this group of people who were interested in channeling. So, you know, they were very excited. And I think it was the second session where they're like, oh, you know what, we should ask this entity what its name and like what planet it's from. And there was, you know, a lot of assumptions of like what planet or what angel it is, or, you know, all these types of things. And, you know, that's perfectly normal because people want to know who they're talking to, right?
Right.
So in the session, someone asked the name and Vagrin replied that a name was given to, like, was shown to me, but at the time, again, I wasn't fully in, like, I wasn't a full trance channel at the time. I was still very hesitant. I was very afraid of everything that was going on. I was like, maybe I'm like possessed. I don't know if this thing is good or bad. I don't know, like, if I'm lying to people. I want to be like really careful, you know. In fact, I was like trying to like make sure I like lie down and stayed really still. Like I had a lot of procedures and protocols
Oh,
that I would like
funny.
make, oh, am I facing south or north? I don't know. I had all these like weird superstitions. And and so they told the crowd, the group, that I was shown a name, but was not going to say it because I was like not wanting to get it wrong. And that
Right.
was like my experience, right? So I came out of like this semi-trance and I was like, well, I don't know what this thing is. They asked me a question. I don't know the answer to it. And like, now I didn't want to like say what it was, because then like, that's a commitment. You know? Like, I don't know what this is. So I got it visually. I don't hear things when I channel. I get like information packages. So I don't have like, until like I speak, there's no sound, right?
Okay.
So I saw the word, I have the book here. So I saw the words, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. So I saw
Yes.
like these letters
Okay.
like this. Okay. And I wrote them down like that. And I went, okay, so Vagrine, I don't know what that is. Right. So I looked at it. So what do? You Google things right away. Right. So what is that? And I didn't find a single thing on the internet. Now you find it, by the way.
Oh,
But I
funny.
didn't find
Of
at the
course.
time a single thing on the internet with these letters. I found like Wagrain in Switzerland, which is a mountain, which is a W, but these letters were not together. And which is also really interesting because what on the internet doesn't exist, right?
Right.
And the only website that did exist was a baby names website. And on that baby names website, it was like, there are 0 usages of this name. We don't know the origin. We don't know the history. We don't know where it comes from. Like, and it's never been used as baby
Oh,
name, or like 0.002 versions of registered names. And then it said something like seeking it. Yeah, I remembered it as sinking ends when sharing begins.
mm-hmm.
And I think that was like what they wrote on the baby name website when a name doesn't come back with hits, right?
Okay. Oh,
But
okay.
I like saw it as like it hit me. Do you know what I mean? It was like, oh, I have all this reluctance, all this like not wanting to share my gifts. I have all this like wanting to hide in the corner and be a wallflower and not have anyone see me or pay me any attention. And I know I've had these gifts my whole life. And I know that there's something profound to share here now. And I'm running around like pretending to try and find answers from like every spiritual book that's out there, or like, you know, sit in meditation for 15 hours when all of it's already available to me. Like I don't have to do any of this stuff because my
Right.
seeking period is done, you know?
Right.
All I have to do is like step up and go and do it. And that was sort of what motivated me to immediately like become public with what I'm doing, and like start putting things online, and just, you know, not caring anymore about like, oh, what do I look like? Like, how do I seem to people? I hope they don't think I'm weird. Like, I don't want, I gave all that stuff up like right away almost, because I had to, like, it
Right.
was irresponsible not to.
Right. But
Yeah.
that'll happen in 2019. So we're
Yeah.
talking like, recent.
Yes. It's very recent, actually. It's very
Yeah.
recent, but it feels like a lifetime ago.
Huh. But do you feel like it happened then because they've been sitting there knocking and you wouldn't let them in?
I think that it was the perfect timing. I think that I had been like sort of channeling long enough when COVID hit that it didn't become a like thing that I put on the back burner or like shelf, because right when quarantine started is when for some reason they motivated me to wake up every morning at 4 a.m. and write the book,
Mm-hmm.
and just get sort of so much content done sort of on that side of things. So that's that first book that I was just showing you guys. And
Yes.
then
Love it.
the other thing was, it was the exact perfect time, because if you remember how the world was at the time, there was all like, it was just such a different world, because there was still this question as to what's real and what isn't real. And
Mm-hmm.
now we're sort of in this space where we kind of decide that nothing's real. Like we're sort
Right.
of at the blank slate right now. And now we get to sort of start choosing what we actually want to accept or not accept anymore. Like, because it's almost been like up until that experience, everyone sort of thought like, okay, this is how things are. Right. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
that was inaccurate. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
just flat out wrong, but you couldn't really convince people that anything was
Right.
off. And
Right.
now people are kind of like, well, if nothing that I thought before was accurate, well, what do I want to believe? What do I want to choose? What do I want to create? And people also are in a position now where they're like, you know what? I really don't want people choosing for me. So it's a really nice period for I think a lot of channeling material to come in. And it's because people are open. And I think that there's no coincidences. People are open. And so
Right.
they're requesting more. And in requesting more of these energies are finding ways of getting to us.
Right.
Yeah.
The interesting part of watching you channels is I know you don't I know you're trans, so a channel is
Yeah.
one that isn't present in the
Yeah.
session.
I'm in pretty much full trance for the
Right.
whole. Yeah.
Explain it like the car, like you're in the back seat. Explain
Yeah.
that.
Okay. So it's really like lending your body and your brain, and that's the important factor, to another energy. So if you can imagine, like when you go to sleep, your body and your brain are like doing like they're chill, right? And then when you wake up in the morning, it's like you open the car door, you get in, and you start driving around. So when I go into trance, it's as if I step out of the front seat and get in the back seat. So I'm still attached to my body. Don't worry, anybody. I'm not going anywhere else. And and I let this other energy drive the vehicle of my body and brain for a period of time.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the biggest part of your life in the last, I guess, 4 years? Do you think it's changed the most, or your perspective, everything? Like what has changed the most after you've discovered that?
Well, I've had a lot of like catalyst and growth on a personal level also in the last 4 years. So 2 years ago, I got separated from my husband, the father of my kids. So that was a big thing. That was a big
Okay. I was going to
change
ask you
as
that.
well.
Okay.
And then this year I had breast cancer. So I just finished having a mastectomy.
Oh my
So I have
gosh.
all of these, really large scale, what could be considered very large scale experiences in the past 4 years as well. And the interesting thing about the experiences I've been having is that I'm pretty sure that I'm handling them in a way that I wouldn't have had I not already been a channel, and had I not already had all of these transmissions and all this energy brought through me. Because there's a layer of peace in me. This will be the biggest transformation. There's a layer and peace of me that there wasn't before.
Right.
and a layer of self-acceptance and knowing that the universe is holding me, and just um like it all makes sense somehow, you know. And yes, of course, there's human emotions, and there's fear, and there's sadness and grief, and there's everything, but it's all part of this beautiful tapestry of like, I don't even know. It's
So
just
when
so
you get the breast cancer,
yeah.
whatever, someone, the doctor says, okay, Jessie, you
Yeah.
have breast cancer.
Hmm.
What now with what do you say? Oh, this is happening for me.
Um, yeah, pretty well. It was kind of like that. It was kind of like, okay, maybe it wasn't right away. This is happening for me. And it, still, I don't think I'm still there yet.
Right.
I don't know if I'm there yet, um, but I might be. Do you know what I mean? Like it's funny because when it's not, this is happening for me, it's, I don't have all the information yet. So I'm gonna just wait,
Oh yeah, I love that.
and allow. I'm gonna wait and allow, and I'm gonna see what comes up. And in the seeing what comes up, I'm gonna allow the emotions too. And I'm gonna allow the experiences, and I'm gonna allow the shifts that happen, and the alterations and the changes. And I'm gonna wait, because the thing I'm sure about is eventually I'll get to, oh, okay, I get it.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love. Yes. When you did get diagnosed with that, did
Yeah.
you talk to Vagrian? Did you channel and ask questions?
I didn't. I don't really talk with them that often about personal stuff. I did talk with them, I think, and I want to look for the recording, but I got, like I said, I get the transmission, so I don't know what they actually replied. But when I was trying to decide whether to get reconstructive surgery or not, and I had a very big like heart pull to not get reconstruction, and I was getting a lot of pressure to get reconstruction from like the doctors and medical industry and stuff. And I went in to talk to Bagrian then, because that was like a decision that
Mhm.
people were pressuring me to make, that was like against my values and against my, like, not because it's wrong for anyone else, but because in me there was a heart that said like, this is not the right road for you, even though
Right.
that's what's being recommended. And so when I spoke to Vagrian, I had like, I think immediately or within a day or two after, just complete peace. I'm like, okay, no, I know my decision and I'm all good. So for things like that, or like the vaccine, when that was a question, I did speak with them about that. And they don't give me personal advice,
Hmm.
but they do remind me of what I know within myself, and to turn back inwards to myself to make decisions, and to not be swayed by external things, or to not be like drawn into fear about things, or to not, all those conditioning things that we can get stuck with,
Right. I mean, don't you
Yeah.
look at life now like, I mean, having breast cancer and getting a divorce and looking at it from, gosh, I chose that.
Yeah.
I chose that was my choice
Yeah.
to have that in life. Like look at people saying, all the bad things and the wars and, the COVID thing, all the things that are in
Mhm.
quotes bad, but really like we're all one and we all chose that.
Yeah.
Is that how you see life?
I do. And I also think that in the same way, you wouldn't play a video game that didn't have any challenges in it.
Right.
It would just be boring.
Right.
We do choose a nice handful of things that we're going to use at the end of each level, as a level up, sort of like, so, if there's no big boss to fight at the end of the level, then, well, it's just not fun to play it anymore. If it's too
Right.
easy, it's not fun to play it anymore. And fun is subjective, because when you're playing a video game and you can't be hurt, you do think it's fun, even if your character goes through all these things and stuff like that, because you're not identified with the character, you're identified with yourself as the player, having this experience of playing the game.
Right.
And the adrenaline you get, and the satisfaction you get for overcoming it, or for doing things the way that you wanted to do them in the game, and I think that that's more likely the case why bad things happen to good people, rather than oh, we're being punished for something or whatever. I think it's your soul makes some choices and knows that you're going to have a hard time, but wants you to have a hard time, to have those challenges and to have those possibilities to win, right? Like to win the game. So when I think of my experience, like, with the separation, I think I won that game because of how amazingly I'm co-parenting, with this person who I still care very much about, but who wasn't, the right partner for me in terms of romantic going forward, into the future. We weren't compatible in that way anymore. Or, the breast cancer thing, like, how satisfying is it to know that you can go through something that could be very scary and come out and go, you know what? Like, I'm hardcore. Like, that just feels so good.
Right.
So, and without that, how could I ever get that feeling of being
Right.
like invincible, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I love that.
Can't.
And I think,
Yeah.
nothing more as knowing that now and knowing you have those children to parent
Yeah.
with that knowing,
Yeah.
like how powerful, it's like we came here to expand, right? If we're not expanding and growing, then we just might as well die. And I don't, when you don't believe, so I love thinking about this. Okay. So we're all one. You even talk about the snowflakes and the rocks and the trees and the birds, and it's all a mirror. We're all looking at
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
So when you're
Absolutely.
outside in nature, are you like in awe of you?
I'm in awe of me, like, how often do we look at our own fingerprints too? Like, I actually did, like, I created an EFT tapping today for body, because, like, again, there are complications. You do have to, like, work on your body image, right? If you've gone through something like this. So I made an EFT tapping, and in the tapping, I was like, working myself up. And I was like, you know what? Like, this is just a miracle consistently. Like, your immune system works, your digestion system works, your endocrine system works, your nervous system works, like, everything works, and you're not managing any of it. You don't have a spreadsheet like going like, oh, okay, at 8 a.m. I have to turn off the circadian rhythm, turn on digestion after breakfast. Like, we have so much for free. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have this
Totally.
amazing system that is so complicated, and it's doing everything for us for free, and we treat it terribly, but it's like, it's free. So, like, you don't need to really even go into nature. You are nature, right?
Right.
Like, you really, like, the fact that your fingernails grow is ridiculous.
Right.
So,
Oh, see, I
there's
know.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
So
it.
I'm totally in awe of, like, even just those kinds of things. And then, like, in nature, it's not even funny. Like, how does green get created? If you go to, like, even something like that, like, question like that, where does color come from? Like, why
Mhm.
are we blessed so much to be able to see color and, like, all this variety? It's just this whole existence is bonkers.
Right. Have you had
Yeah.
an awakening moment where it just like blew your mind?
Yeah, I've had two of those. And one is described the last chapter of the book.
Right.
So you'll get to hear all about that. That was sort of like just insane, where I really saw that everything was one. And it was just super clear, like, unbelievably clear. And I don't remember how it faded. I didn't try and hold on to it. I know that happens sometimes. People are like, oh, I have to get that sensation back. Knowing that exists, and that we do have access to that state of bliss is enough for me. Like, I don't need to have that every day, again, because I am quite I'm quite enamored with being human this time around. Like, I'm quite enamored with the hilarity and the suffering and just the drama of being a human being, because in that state of bliss, there's no drama. It's all
Right.
peace, right? So, but I enjoy being human. If that's makes any sense. And then the other one was similar, but the other one was much more painful, because in the other one, I saw how nothing you can ever do or accomplish or be here in humanity can ever be authentic, right? And the explanation of that is because you can never express the full isness of the divinity that you are, because you're
Mhm.
individuated, right? So when you feel that, like, hugeness, right? If you have, like, and I had a distortion at the time of, like, I have to be, like, the most spiritual, I have to be spiritual, right? If you have that kind of distortion and you try and filter this energy through that distortion of, like, I have to express the highest, I have to be my higher self, I have to do this. If you get a glimpse of that, you have this deep grief as a person saying, like, I can never, ever, ever do that. I can do my best, but I can never be that. right?
Right.
While I'm human. So the only option is like leave or stay and try and see like, okay, well now what kind of human do I want to be? So they were both very profound and very different in subtle ways, but also in important ways. And the first one was the overwhelming grief one.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
So I know you said you would channel
Yes.
toward the end. I'd love to get into that.
Okay.
And I know how you explain how you work. I know how you work. I know how this
Okay.
works, but explain how you do this.
So I take a couple minutes, I go into trance, then Vagrin will start talking. We'll have a bit of a conversation, and then they'll share whatever they have to share, and that's about it. It's kind of simple. I just wait. The energy, I can feel the energy already. I tend to start speaking faster and faster when they're around, and then we can just go. Yeah.
Because you're getting the intention. Is that what you're
No,
calling
it's
her?
like it's like a tuning into a sense, like almost like a magnetic field, right? So I feel them around, and then I get flooded with energy. I don't know why. I guess it's to be able to channel, and then I tend to talk faster. Like it's almost like I'm in a rush to get to the part where I'm just silent and still, and then they come in, and it's really, it's a really specific feeling. It's almost like hyperactivity for a little bit before I channel.
Oh, neat. So
Yeah.
you're going to get in the back seat.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let them drive. All right. And I will see you in a little while.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Good now to you. We are pleased to be meeting with you in this fashion.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to meet with you. I would like to ask you who Vagrian is and where they came from.
We are a being or a group of energy that is non-physical, non-local, and therefore we are not identifiable as a who specifically, but more of as a what. A what is the energy of all that is, isness, energy, individuated in a way, filtered to be able to communicate with you, to be channeled, if you will, through this vessel. There is no location of the energy. There is only isness. There's only what is, in that the energy is accessible in all locations to all, if so choose.
So I could choose for you to come through me as a
Yes,
channel?
and as the energy has this particular identification or name only in a form of convenience to be able to be differentiated in its translation, in its transmission through this vessel. The energy that you would receive is, yes, the same, but would not necessarily have the same exact flavor. It would be filtered in its way for you, by you, through you, to be shared with humanity, to be shared with your peers, your friends, your family, in the ways that you so see fit.
Explain time.
Time is a human construct. It is based upon observation that you have had. Your observation is because of permanence of storyline. So, for example, your first beings that observed what time is, or what time could be, or could be seen to be, would move an object, and the object would remain in the space that they moved it to for the next time, or what would be considered time, that they visited a certain cave, for example. And then if they move the object again, they would find that returning to the cave, had no one else passed, it would be in that new location, at which point to communicate to another when, or the movement of the object, having done that twice, they would say, the last time we were here, the last moment we were here, this object was moved. Of course, this is a broad example of perhaps weeks passing between the two movements of the object. What you are perceiving of as time is moment to moment, millisecond to millisecond. And again, moments and milliseconds are measurement tools or concepts that you have created in order to try to wrangle or contain something that is not containable. The reason why time seems to exist is because you have memory, and because you need memory, or you need to have the perception of memory to learn, to have a linear story to go through. Time does not exist, but story does. And as you create story, you seem to create it in time, but it is really that it is created in consciousness. Consciousness is not tied to time, because time, again, is a convenient explanation for something that is not necessarily explainable. But of course, there is the collective agreement that time does exist, or that it is something that is real. And the moment there is the collective agreement, you are all using the concepts in a unified fashion, and therefore are now bound to the laws of that unified conceptual fashion. However, outside of the size that you find yourself at, outside of consciousness, that there is no outside of consciousness, but outside of your perception, human, there is no time. And on a minuscule level, in fact, time is bendable. It is not linear. So the use of time is that you can write your stories. The functionality of it is that, but it is not the whole story in itself. This is conceptual. It is hard to wrap one's head around. It is also unnecessary to do so, but the more accurate statement would be that everything is happening all at once, everywhere.
Why do we choose to come in as a human?
Our first answer would be for the fun of it. We know that you will not understand or accept that answer readily. Understand perhaps, but accept it, no, because many of you believe yourself to not be having very much fun at all. And that is okay. But we would say that you've come for the fun, for the learning, for the glory, for the desire, for the experience, for the sensing, for the story. Yes, as well, for the entertainment value, and that if you were to remember really that this was why you came, it would be far easier to allow yourself to have the sensations that you desired in the first place to come in and have.
Has Vagrian ever been in physical form?
We have not been specifically in physical form, no. But we are in all physical form. And so there are physical beings that are more closely connected, or not connected, but simultaneous with us, sharing the same frequency. You are one of them in that you can hear our messages. Anyone who can hear our messages is more closely linked to the energy that you are hearing transmitted than one who cannot, or who chooses not to for this now. And that is perfectly fine. We have not, however, had what you would consider a physical life.
The children that are coming in now, are they at a different vibration?
Yes.
What is their intention to come in right now?
Whereas those of you who have come in slightly before have been here as a desire to witness the unfolding. These newer beings are part of the first cleanup crew.
What is going on on this planet at this time?
At this time, there is a choice, a transformation, a tipping point occurring where your consciousness has risen to an amount that there is deep desire for change, or for a new storyline, for a whole rewrite of everything that is. And so there has been catalysts called in to facilitate that sort of energy. There have also been many who have chosen or are choosing or would choose to not experience catalyst in order to have this change occur. And so you are having two types of energy converging: the energy of those who would see things change without deep destruction or catalyst, and those who are still in a space of not being quite uncomfortable enough, and therefore in their comfortableness or comforts, they are asking for new inspiration, new aspects to stimulate them to an awakening state. But it is exciting for you. It is an exciting time. It is a time of change. It is a time of discovery of self, and in many ways, a graduation, a moving on to a next level and choosing what one would want to do. Our advice to you would be that each being can choose for themselves what feels best to them, and in staying in alignment with what feels best to them without being swayed by external circumstance, but without being swayed by external seeming examples of what could be perceived of as negative, you will maintain a high vibration and call into your experience and the experience of those around you the best possible scenario for you.
Thank you, Vagrian. That was a beautiful message.
We thank you, and we are honored to be here as a co-creator and a collaborator with you at this time of choosing, at this time of change, of this time of learning to discern and decide what serves and what does not serve for you moving forward in love, in light. And we are honored to be allowed to be a participant of that, because it is only through your will that we are able to interact. We have complete faith that no matter what you choose, no matter what occurs, you are in your highest, you are worthy, you are loved. And we too share in this. And with that, we leave you with the light and love of 1,000 suns. Anai.
Oh, thank you. Wow, that was so fun. And I know
It's
you don't
quick. It was
remember
quick, but
anything.
it's fun.
I was like, okay, I know we have an hour. Good. I don't want to take advantage. Thank you. But you don't
Um,
remember anything. Is there anything?
um, no, you asked about, oh, I know you asked about the next generation.
Yeah, the children
Yeah.
coming in.
That's an interesting subject because they've said some surprising things about that to like in sessions in the past
Oh,
that I've listened back and I've gone, oh, that's interesting. That's weird. I think
huh.
someone once asked, yeah, there was something that popped up like I was reading an old transcript. There was something that popped up recently, and someone was asking like, oh, I work with children, and they like Vagger was being very specific. This was a couple years ago. And they were like, yeah, the ones under 6 like are a different species. So like they're just a different species, and like deal with the ones above 6 like in this way, and but the ones under 6 like they're not the same species. So don't like assume you know anything. Like it's a new whole thing, and like you adults have to learn the whole new thing, and you're gonna let them lead you. So that was really
Huh.
surprising because they don't normally like say anything concretely.
Right.
Yeah, but
No,
on that
but
topic they have.
yeah, I see that because I work with kids and it's like interesting to watch and how, like the parenting and, like in our parenting versus the new parents and how they parent. And, it's just interesting. And then the way the children are becoming, this time of this world with all the technology and,
Yeah.
our kids, I mean, I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. So that's all been in their life,
Yeah.
and, we only got to experience it as when they were little, when they were in here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a whole different life.
Yeah. I always say like my age is like the last generation that grew up without like like without technology. And it's so weird to interact with people who have never known any different. And
Hmm.
but I find it so fascinating. And then like there's been so much stuff and it's happened so fast. Like the AI thing, I don't know, it's been like 3 months. There's
Right.
been this whole AI explosion. And it's funny because it like keeps coming up. Like I know that Vagrin wants to channel on it eventually because like I'm hearing a little bit of stuff around, but it's really interesting how like it's all part of consciousness. Like the technology is not like something external to us. It's
Right.
all us,
Right.
and it's super interesting to sort of see how like we're so creative as humans. Like we can find anything to panic about, right? Like
Right.
anything at all.
You know what I love too about what you said was, when we are creative and we are inspired to do something and we don't do it, like we don't write a book or we don't start a podcast or whatever it is,
Yeah.
um, someone else will.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's so cool. I was telling that to the girls the other day. I said, if you ever have an idea, if you don't take it and,
Yeah.
move and take action, it's going to be out there and someone else is going to get it.
That's right. And it's like that ball. Like if you're playing basketball, right? And someone throws the ball towards you and you don't grab it and you don't head down the court, like the guy behind you is going to grab it because that's
Right.
how the game works, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. It's fun.
yeah.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. Thank you. It was
thank
so
you
fun to
so
meet
much.
you.
Yes. So nice to meet you.
jpherman.com,
Yes, that's right. Exactly.
your your books. What
Yeah.
else? Your
2 books.
sessions.
I've got, yeah, a whole YouTube channel I'm trying to publish stuff every day.
Yeah.
Not doing a great job at it, but I'm every couple days at least.
Yeah. I know
And
Instagram is fun to watch.
Instagram, yeah, yeah. Anyone can find anything about me on my website. I think that's the best place to go and head off. And you can get 2 free chapters of the book right on the website. So if you go on the website, get 2 chapters of the book for free, and then see if you like it. And you like it, you get it. You don't like it, don't get it.
Will you ever make it into an Audible?
I'm trying to. I've been trying to record it myself, but I'm not sure about my voice. But I've got the first chapter on YouTube. So that's like an audiobook / video book thing.
Okay.
And eventually I'll find like a voice actor
No.
with like a deep voice to read it.
Yeah, I want it to be your voice. I
Okay.
always, whenever it's someone else, I don't get as much into the book, but
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. Maybe I'll get rid of another belief
yeah,
tonight.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good night. You get to go to sleep
Right.
soon, I'm sure. And I'm
Yes.
just starting my day, but
Okay. Well,
thank
have
you
a
for
wonderful
coming.
day.
Thank you. Yes. You
Okay.
have a have your sweet dreams.
Thank you.